Have you ever wondered what happens when society's cruelest judgments collide with raw, undiscovered talent? Everyone laughed at him as he stood silently against the wall, back aching from the teacher's punishment. But they had no idea what he was building in that old junkyard. Marcus Johnson's journey from humiliated scholarship student to mechanical prodigy will leave you breathless as he transforms a broken Rolls-Royce, and himself, despite every obstacle thrown in his path. What happens when those who mocked him must face the brilliance they tried to crush? Dear viewer, if you are watching my story for the first time, I humbly request you write the location from where you are watching right now, subscribe this channel and press the bell icon now not to miss the notifications of my daily published news stories. Thank you, and let's dive into the full story. Marcus Johnson stood at the back of the classroom, his spine pressed against the wall. The hard surface provided temporary relief for his aching back, a constant reminder of Ms. Peterson's wooden ruler that had struck him 3 months ago. At 16, Marcus was tall for his age, with intelligent eyes that observed everything around him. "Mr. Johnson, there's an empty seat right there," Ms. Peterson said, pointing to a vacant desk in the front row. Her voice carried a coldness reserved especially for him. "I prefer standing, ma'am," Marcus replied quietly. "My back." "You're back again," she scoffed, eliciting snickers from several students. "Very well. Stand if you must, but don't expect special treatment on your exam." Marcus nodded silently. He was used to this, the subtle discrimination, the dismissive tones, the raised eyebrows when he spoke. As a scholarship student at Westfield High, he existed in a different world from his wealthy classmates. The bell rang, ending another torturous class. As students filed out, Blake Thompson brushed past Marcus, deliberately knocking his textbook to the floor. "Oops, sorry scholarship," Blake smirked. His designer clothes and perfectly styled hair screamed old money. Marcus bent slowly to retrieve his book, wincing as pain shot through his lower back. He'd long stopped reporting these incidents. What was the point? Principal Blackwell always sided with families like the Thompsons, whose donations funded the new library wing. After school, Marcus took the long route home, passing through neighborhoods that gradually grew more modest. His mother would be working her second shift at the hospital. She wouldn't be home until midnight. In their small apartment, Marcus made dinner for his younger sister before starting his homework. Between assignments, he flipped through a discarded automotive magazine he'd found in the school library's trash bin. His fingers traced the glossy image of a Rolls-Royce Phantom. One day, he whispered to himself, studying the intricate engine diagram. Cars had always fascinated him, the precision, the engineering, the beauty of mechanical systems working in perfect harmony. His mother arrived home exhausted but managed a warm smile when she saw him. "How was school?" she asked, hanging up her coat. "Same as always," Marcus replied, not wanting to burden her with more worries. She noticed the magazine. "Still dreaming about cars?" "They make sense to me," Marcus said. "Unlike people." She ruffled his hair affectionately. "You've got a gift, Marcus. Don't let anyone make you forget that." As he lay in bed that night, his back throbbing, Marcus thought about engines and carburetors instead of classroom humiliations. In his dreams, he wasn't the scholarship kid everyone overlooked. He was someone with purpose, with talent, someone who mattered. Marcus awoke to the familiar ache in his lower back, a persistent reminder of that fateful day 3 months ago. The memory surfaced with painful clarity as he slowly rose from bed. It had been during Ms. Peterson's history class. Marcus, eager to answer a question about the Industrial Revolution, had raised his hand and offered an insight about how automotive innovations had transformed society. "That wasn't what I asked," Ms. Peterson had snapped. "Perhaps if you paid more attention instead of daydreaming about cars, you'd understand the actual curriculum." When Marcus had tried to clarify his point, she'd interpreted it as backtalk. "Come to the front," she commanded. In front of the entire class, she'd forced him to bend over her desk. The wooden ruler had come down 6 times, hard, deliberate strikes that had left welts on his back. No one had intervened. Some students had looked away uncomfortably, while others, like Blake Thompson, had smirked. That evening, his mother had discovered the bruises while doing laundry. Her face had transformed from shock to fury. "She had no right," she'd exclaimed the next morning, storming into Principal Blackwell's office with Marcus. "This is assault." Principal Blackwell, a tall man with cold eyes, had steepled his fingers. "Ms. Peterson is one of our most respected educators. She maintains discipline as she sees fit." "By beating my son?" Marcus's mother had demanded. "Corporal punishment is technically within school guidelines for serious infractions," he'd replied smoothly. Though regrettable, Ms. Peterson reported that Marcus was disruptive and disrespectful. "That's not true," Marcus had protested. "Your scholarship is a privilege, Mr. Johnson," Principal Blackwell had reminded him. "One that can be revoked." The subtle threat had hung in the air. His mother, who worked 2 jobs to keep their family afloat, had deflated visibly. They couldn't afford to lose the scholarship. 2 of Marcus's classmates, Jamal and Tyler, had witnessed the entire incident. When approached by Marcus's mother, they'd averted their eyes. "I didn't really see anything," Tyler had mumbled, while Jamal had whispered, "I'm sorry," when no one else was looking. Since that day, Marcus had developed a strategy of self-preservation. He arrived exactly on time to Ms. Peterson's class and left the moment the bell rang. He never sat down in her classroom, claiming back pain, which wasn't a lie. The injury had left him with recurring discomfort that flared up when he sat for too long. Ms. Peterson had turned his standing into another opportunity for humiliation. "Our prima donna needs special accommodations," she would announce to the class. "Apparently, the chairs at Westfield aren't good enough for some people." As Marcus prepared for school this morning, he packed extra pain relievers. Today would be a double period of history, meaning 2 hours of standing against the back wall while Miss Peterson's voice droned on, occasionally sharpening when directed at him. "You'll get through this," his mother assured him, noticing his grimace as he shouldered his backpack. "Education is your ticket out, Marcus. Don't let them take that from you." Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of her words. In their world, opportunities were rare and fragile things, easily shattered by people like Miss Peterson and Principal Blackwell, who saw him not as a student with potential, but as an outsider who didn't belong. After another excruciating day at Westfield High, Marcus decided to take a different route home. His back was throbbing worse than usual after standing through double history and physical education. Blake Thompson had accidentally rammed into him during basketball, sending Marcus sprawling across the court to the amusement of his wealthy friends. "Watch where you're going, scholarship," Blake had jeered, high-fiving his companions. Coach Reeves had merely blown his whistle. "Johnson, if you can't handle normal contact, maybe sit this one out." Now, seeking solitude, Marcus cut through an unfamiliar neighborhood. The houses gradually thinned out, replaced by industrial buildings and finally, an expansive junkyard surrounded by a chain-link fence. A weathered sign read, "Grayson's Salvage and Parts." Something caught Marcus's eye, a glimpse of distinctive grillwork partially covered by a tarp. He moved closer to the fence, his heart accelerating. It couldn't be, but it was, the unmistakable front end of a Rolls-Royce Phantom, albeit in devastating condition. "Hey! What are you doing?" Marcus startled. An older man with weathered skin and suspicious eyes approached from inside the yard. "Sorry, sir. I was just looking at that car." Marcus pointed toward the rolls. "Nothing to see. Just waiting for parts to be stripped," the man grumbled. "That's a Phantom Series 2, isn't it?" Marcus asked. "Probably 2012, judging by the headlight configuration." The man, presumably Mr. Grayson, narrowed his eyes. "What's a kid like you know about Rolls-Royces?" Before Marcus could answer, a sleek Mercedes pulled up. 3 Westfield students, Blake Thompson and his friends Connor and Damon, emerged, laughing about something on Connor's phone. They stopped when they spotted Marcus. "Well, look who it is," Blake drawled. "Dumpster diving, scholarship. Finally found where you belong." Connor snickered. "What's he doing, checking out that wreck?" As if you could ever afford even a piece of a Rolls. My dad says those are worth $500,000 new, Damon added. Probably still worth more than his whole neighborhood even broken down. Mr. Grayson frowned at the newcomers. Can I help you boys? Blake flashed a practiced smile. My father sent me to ask about the vintage Mustang parts you called about. Thompson's kid? Mr. Grayson's demeanor changed subtly. Right. Got them set aside in the office. As the three boys followed Mr. Grayson inside, Blake deliberately bumped Marcus's shoulder. Don't touch anything, scholarship. Even garbage is too good for you. Alone again, Marcus returned his attention to the Rolls-Royce. Despite its damaged condition, crushed rear section, shattered windows, and significant front-end damage, he could see the ghost of its former magnificence. Through the broken window, he glimpsed the engine bay. His trained eye identified several issues immediately, but also noted that the core components seemed salvageable. When Mr. Grayson returned without the boys, Marcus approached him. What happened to it? Drunk driver wrapped it around a tree. Insurance wrote it off as totaled. Mr. Grayson studied Marcus with new interest. You really know cars? I study them whenever I can, Marcus admitted. That Phantom could run again with the right work. Mr. Grayson laughed. Would cost more than it's worth. Maybe, Marcus said. But I'd like to see it up close, if that's okay. Something in his earnest request made the older man hesitate. You're not like those other private school kids, are you? No, sir. I'm at Westfield on scholarship. Mr. Grayson considered him for a long moment. Come back tomorrow after I close. 5 o'clock. You can look, just look, mind you, for 15 minutes. As Marcus walked home, his back pain seemed less significant. His mind raced with possibilities, imagining the silent engine roaring to life once more. For the first time in months, he felt a flicker of something he'd almost forgotten, hope. Marcus returned to Grayson's salvage and parts exactly at 5 the next evening. Mr. Grayson was waiting, keys jingling in his weathered hands. Didn't think you'd show, he commented, unlocking the side gate. I wouldn't miss this, Marcus replied, following the older man through stacks of salvaged vehicles. The Rolls-Royce looked even more magnificent up close, despite its damaged condition. Marcus circled it reverently, his trained eye cataloging every injury to its once perfect form. V12 engine, 6.75-liter displacement, he murmured, peering under the crumpled hood. Still intact, amazingly. Mr. Grayson watched with growing curiosity. Where'd you learn all this? Books, magazines, videos, Marcus replied, gently touching the broken grille. Been studying cars since I was 7. My mom couldn't afford toys, but the library had automotive encyclopedias. Something shifted in Mr. Grayson's expression. 15 minutes are up, kid. Marcus nodded, reluctantly stepping away. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. As he turned to leave, Mr. Grayson called after him. Tomorrow. Same time. For 2 weeks, the pattern continued. Marcus would arrive at 5, spend time examining the Rolls-Royce, and share his observations with Mr. Grayson, who listened with increasing interest. On the 15th day, Marcus arrived to find an elderly man with Mr. Grayson. Marcus, this is Mr. Wilson, Mr. Grayson introduced. Lives in your building. Says he knows you. Hello, Mr. Wilson, Marcus greeted his neighbor politely. I didn't know you knew Mr. Grayson. Old Army buddies, Mr. Wilson explained, his eyes twinkling. Ray here called me after you started visiting. Said there was a young man who knew more about luxury cars than most mechanics. Mr. Wilson had been a mechanic for 40 years before retiring. As they walked to the Rolls-Royce, he shared stories of engines he'd rebuilt and celebrities whose cars he'd serviced. So what's your plan, son? Mr. Wilson asked, watching Marcus examine the twisted frame. Plan. Marcus looked up, confused. You've been staring at this wreck for 2 weeks, Mr. Grayson interjected. Either you're the most patient car thief I've ever met, or you've got ideas for it. Marcus hesitated, then admitted the truth. I think it could run again. The frame needs straightening, the electrical system's shot, and the transmission's probably damaged. But the engine block is solid. With time and the right parts. Mr. Wilson exchanged a knowing look with Mr. Grayson. I've got tools, Mr. Wilson offered. And knowledge. Been looking for something to keep these old hands busy. And I've got parts, Mr. Grayson added. This thing's been taking up space, destined for the crusher. Marcus looked between them, hardly daring to understand their implication. You fix it, Mr. Grayson said simply, you can have it. Have it? Marcus echoed. Not legal to drive yet, title salvage. But as a project. Mr. Grayson shrugged. Why not? For the first time in months, Marcus smiled without reservation. In that moment, standing beside a broken luxury car that most would consider beyond salvation, he felt something rare and precious, possibility. The weeks that followed established a grueling routine for Marcus. School days were filled with the usual torment, Ms. Peterson's cutting remarks, Blake's calculated harassment, and the silent witness of classmates who never intervened. Evenings and weekends belonged to the Rolls-Royce. Mr. Johnson, since you insist on standing, perhaps you'd like to explain to the class why the Treaty of Versailles failed, Ms. Peterson challenged one morning, her voice dripping with disdain. Marcus, who had been mentally calculating the torque specifications for the Phantom's engine mounts, blinked back to the present. The treaty imposed harsh penalties on Germany without addressing underlying economic and social factors, creating resentment that Hitler later exploited, he answered. Ms. Peterson's lips thinned. She'd expected him to falter. While technically correct, you've oversimplified a complex historical event. See me after class. Snickers rippled through the room. Jamal shot Marcus a sympathetic glance before quickly looking away. After class, Ms. Peterson didn't mince words. Your grades are slipping, Mr. Johnson. Is your scholarship no longer important to you? Marcus stared at the floor. How could he explain that he'd found something worth living for in that broken Rolls-Royce? That for a few hours each day, he wasn't the scholarship kid with the target on his back. It's important, he said instead. Then act like it. She dismissed him with a wave. In science class, things were different. Ms. Hammond, a younger teacher with kind eyes and infectious enthusiasm, had noticed Marcus's mechanical aptitude. Excellent explanation of hydraulic systems, Marcus, she praised after he'd answered a question. You have a natural understanding of physics applications. Blake raised his hand. Ms. Hammond, is understanding hydraulic systems going to help Johnson fix the cars he'll be washing for people like my dad? 5 students laughed on cue. Marcus's hands clenched into fists beneath his desk. Ms. Hammond wasn't amused. Mr. Thompson, that comment was inappropriate and presumptuous. You have no idea what Marcus might accomplish in his future. I heard he's been hanging around that old junkyard, piped up Connor. Probably stealing hubcaps. More laughter. Marcus felt his face burn. That's enough, Miss Hammond said firmly. One more comment like that, and you'll be spending your afternoon with Principal Blackwell. The mockery subsided but didn't disappear. Throughout the day, whispers followed Marcus. Junkyard Johnson became his new nickname. By the time the final bell rang, Marcus's back pain had intensified from the stress and standing. Yet the thought of heading to Mr. Grayson's yard gave him the strength to endure. His mother had noticed his exhaustion but attributed it to school demands. Don't push yourself too hard, she cautioned, pressing a pain reliever into his palm one morning. Marcus nodded, grateful she didn't know the full truth. He'd tell her about the Rolls-Royce when, if, he actually managed to restore it. Until then, it remained his secret project, his impossible dream, his reason to keep standing tall despite the pain that followed him everywhere. On a crisp Saturday morning, Marcus arrived at the junkyard to find Mr. Grayson waiting with a stack of papers. Time to make this official, the older man announced. Can't have you working on my property without some paperwork. Marcus examined the document, a basic agreement stating that the 2012 Rolls-Royce Phantom, salvage title, would become his property if successfully restored to running condition within 1 year. Until then, it remained Mr. Grayson's property, with Marcus granted full access for restoration purposes. 1 year? Marcus questioned, his heart sinking. That's not much time for a project this big. Got to have deadlines, kid, Mr. Grayson replied, though his eyes held a hint of amusement. Besides, that car's taking up valuable space. As they discussed terms, a young woman about Marcus's age approached. Her curly hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she carried a toolbox that looked too heavy for her slight frame. Grandpa, Mom's asking if you're still coming to dinner tonight, she said, setting down the toolbox. Mr. Grayson's weathered face softened. Wouldn't miss it. Zoe, this is Marcus. He's taking on that Rolls project we discussed. Zoe's eyes widened. Seriously? I thought you were joking. She turned to Marcus with newfound interest. You really think you can fix it? I'm going to try, Marcus answered, surprised by her lack of mockery. Zoe's studying engineering at the community college, Mr. Grayson explained. Been helping me around the yard since she was knee-high. Electrical systems are my specialty, Zoe offered. That Phantom has some complicated wiring. Might need an extra pair of hands. Before Marcus could respond, Mr. Wilson arrived, pulling a red wagon loaded with toolboxes. Got everything we need to start, he announced cheerfully. Borrowed some specialty tools from my old shop buddy. He says if we need anything else, just ask. Marcus stared at the impressive collection. Mr. Wilson, these must be worth thousands. Tools are meant to be used, son, Mr. Wilson interrupted. Been sitting in my closet gathering dust for years. About time they helped build something beautiful again. They spent the morning assessing the Rolls-Royce's damage more thoroughly. The extensive list of needed repairs would have discouraged most people, but to Marcus, each problem was a puzzle waiting to be solved. First step is getting that frame straightened, Mr. Wilson advised. No point fixing anything else until the bones are right. I know a guy with a frame machine, Mr. Grayson said. Owes me a favor. As they worked, Zoe observed Marcus's methodical approach. You really know what you're doing, she remarked, watching him carefully disconnect the damaged wiring harness. I've studied, but never actually worked on a car like this, Marcus admitted. Could have fooled me, she replied, handing him wire cutters. By late afternoon, they had created a restoration plan with phases and parts requirements. The cost would have been prohibitive if purchased new, but Mr. Grayson knew sources for quality used and refurbished parts. Here's the deal, he said as they prepared to leave. I provide the space and help source parts at cost. You provide the labor and passion. If, when, you get it running, we split any profit if you decide to sell. I'm not planning to sell it, Marcus said quickly. Mr. Grayson chuckled. Kid, when this is done, you'll have colleges and companies fighting to recruit you. A working Rolls-Royce restoration will be your ticket to whatever future you want. For the first time, Marcus allowed himself to imagine such possibilities. Not just escaping Westfield and Ms. Peterson's cruelty, but creating a future built on his genuine talents. Do we have a deal? Mr. Grayson extended his hand. Marcus grasped it firmly. Deal. As Marcus headed home that evening, Zoe fell into step beside him. Same time tomorrow, she asked casually. Marcus nodded, surprised and pleased by her interest in the project. Good, she said with a smile. Because that wiring harness is going to need more than one set of hands. For the first time since the incident with Ms. Peterson, Marcus felt the weight on his shoulders lighten. He had allies now, people who saw value in both him and his dreams. 3 months passed in a blur of grease-stained hands and gradual transformation. The Rolls-Royce's twisted frame had been slowly coaxed back into alignment. Its damaged body panels, removed and categorized, awaited restoration or replacement. Under Mr. Wilson's guidance, Marcus had carefully disassembled the massive V12 engine, marveling at its intricate design even as he documented each component's condition. "You've got a gift," Mr. Wilson often remarked, watching Marcus intuitively diagnose issues that would have confounded less experienced mechanics. 30 years in the business, and I've rarely seen hands that understand engines like yours do." At school, Marcus's dual life continued. His grades had stabilized, not excellent, but sufficient to maintain his scholarship. Ms. Peterson remained a daily torment, but her barbs seemed to penetrate less deeply now. Marcus had something she couldn't touch or diminish: purpose. Blake Thompson, however, had intensified his campaign of harassment after spotting Marcus and Zoe walking together near the junkyard. "Scholarship's got a junkyard girlfriend," he announced loudly in the cafeteria, flanked by Connor and Damon. "Guess you two can build a cardboard mansion together." The laughter that followed was predictable, but Zoe's existence had become another target. Marcus kept his head down, knowing any reaction would only escalate the situation. "What's wrong, Johnson?" "Nothing to say." Blake pressed, emboldened by Marcus's silence. "Maybe your back is hurting from digging through trash all day." "Leave him alone," Jamal suddenly spoke up, surprising everyone, including himself. Blake's eyes narrowed. "Something you want to share with the class, Jamal?" Jamal swallowed hard, glancing between Marcus and Blake. "Just, find someone else to mess with for a change." "Since when do you care about scholarship kids?" Connor demanded. Jamal gathered his tray without answering and moved to another table. It wasn't a dramatic stand, but in the ecosystem of Westfield High, it represented a significant disruption to the established order. At home, Marcus's mother had begun to question his constant exhaustion and engine grease-stained fingernails. "You're coming home later every day," she observed one evening. "And those calluses on your hands aren't from textbooks." Marcus considered telling her everything but hesitated. What if the restoration failed? What if, after all the hours and effort, the engine refused to start? Better to wait until he had something concrete to show for his secret labor. "I'm helping Mr. Wilson with some projects," he said instead. "Learning practical skills." His mother studied him carefully. "You seem different lately. Standing taller, despite everything." "I'm fine, Mom," he assured her, changing the subject. "How was your shift today?" Back at the junkyard, progress continued steadily. Zoe had proven invaluable, her understanding of electrical systems complementing Marcus's mechanical instincts. Together, they had mapped and begun replacing the Phantom's complex wiring. "My professor would fail me if he knew I was helping rebuild a car without proper schematics," she joked one afternoon, carefully splicing color-coded wires. "We have the factory manual," Marcus pointed out, gesturing to the grease-stained document Mr. Wilson had somehow procured. "Which is written for professional Rolls-Royce technicians with specialized equipment," she countered. "Not teenagers in a junkyard." "Are you saying we can't do it?" he challenged. Zoe smiled. "I'm saying it's going to be one hell of an accomplishment when we do." Their friendship had deepened over shared challenges and small victories. Unlike his classmates at Westfield, Zoe never saw Marcus as a charity case or an outsider. She saw him as he truly was: gifted, determined, and worthy of respect. As winter approached, the restoration entered its most critical phase. The engine components, meticulously cleaned and inspected, awaited reassembly. The transmission, miraculously salvageable, had been rebuilt under Mr. Wilson's supervision. The body, now straightened and prepared, was ready for the final cosmetic restoration. For Marcus, standing against the wall in Ms. Peterson's classroom had become merely a physical stance, not an emotional one. His mind was elsewhere, calculating compression ratios and planning the sequence for reconnecting the engine control module. His body might be trapped at Westfield, but his spirit was already racing down open roads in a restored Phantom. The first snow of winter dusted the junkyard in pristine white, creating an otherworldly backdrop for the partially restored Rolls-Royce. Marcus arrived early on Saturday, eager to continue reassembling the engine that now gleamed with cleaned and refurbished components. The chain-link gate stood ajar, unusual, as Mr. Grayson was meticulous about security. A sense of unease prickled at the back of Marcus's neck as he made his way through the familiar maze of salvaged vehicles. He heard Mr. Grayson's raised voice before he saw him. "This is private property. You have no right." Rounding the corner, Marcus stopped cold. The protective tarp that had covered the Rolls-Royce lay discarded on the ground. Blake Thompson stood beside the car, a spray paint can in his hand. Connor and Damon flanked him, laughing nervously. "What have you done?" Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible. The once elegant hood of the Phantom now bore crude graffiti, "Junkyard Dreams," in dripping red letters. Worse, the meticulously restored engine bay showed signs of deliberate sabotage, wires yanked free, hoses cut, and what looked like sugar spilling from the open fuel port. "Just thought we'd help with your art project," Blake smirked, though his eyes darted toward the furious Mr. Grayson. "Heard you've been playing mechanic." Mr. Grayson advanced toward the teenagers. "I've called the police. Vandalism and trespassing, your daddy's money won't make this go away." Something shifted in Blake's expression, a flash of genuine fear. "It's just a joke, old man. This piece of junk was already wrecked." Marcus approached the car in a daze, his fingers tracing the damaged wiring he and Zoe had spent weeks installing. 3 months of painstaking work, countless hours after school and on weekends, all systematically destroyed in what had probably taken less than 15 minutes. "You don't understand what you've done," he said, his voice hollow. "Oh, spare me the drama," Blake rolled his eyes. "It's just a broken-down car that was headed for the crusher anyway. Not like you could ever afford a real one." The sound of approaching sirens cut through the tension. Connor and Damon exchanged panicked looks. "Let's go," Connor urged, tugging at Blake's designer jacket. "You're not going anywhere," Mr. Grayson blocked their path. "You'll stay right here and explain to the officers what you thought gave you the right to destroy someone else's property." What followed was a blur for Marcus: police statements, photos of the damage, Blake's father arriving in his own Bentley, red-faced and alternating between threats of lawsuits and attempts to minimize the incident as boys being boys. "I'll pay for whatever parts they damaged," Mr. Thompson finally conceded, writing a check with obvious reluctance. "But I want no charges pressed." Mr. Grayson looked to Marcus. "It's your project. Your call." All eyes turned to Marcus, the vandals, their wealthy father, the police officers clearly uncomfortable with the power dynamics at play. In that moment, the injustice of it all threatened to overwhelm him. These boys had deliberately destroyed something precious, not because they needed to, but because they couldn't stand seeing someone like him aspire to something beyond his assigned place. Before Marcus could respond, Zoe arrived, stopping short at the sight of the damaged car. Her expression crumpled as she took in the extent of the vandalism. "You did this?" she asked Blake, her voice tight with controlled fury. "Do you have any idea how many hours we've put into this restoration? How many nights Marcus stayed until midnight getting that wiring just right?" "Not my problem," Blake muttered, though he couldn't quite meet her eyes. Mr. Wilson arrived moments later, his elderly face falling as he surveyed the damage. "Oh, son," he sighed, placing a supportive hand on Marcus's shoulder. Marcus looked between his allies, Mr. Grayson, Mr. Wilson, and Zoe, then at the vandals who had so casually destroyed months of work. The path of retribution beckoned, but something deeper pulled at him. "I don't want charges," he finally said, his voice steadying. "But I want them to see." "See what?" Blake scoffed. "What they tried to destroy," Marcus answered simply. "I want them to come back when the Rolls-Royce runs again, because it will. And I want them to know that while they can damage parts, they can't break the vision." Mr. Thompson wrote the check for the estimated damages, herding his son and friends toward their waiting vehicles. As they left, Marcus heard Damon whisper, "Your dad's going to kill you when he sees how much this cost." Once they were gone, Marcus finally allowed himself to fully absorb the extent of the damage. The sabotage went beyond simple vandalism, it was targeted to cause maximum harm to the project. Sugar in the fuel system. Cut wires. Deliberately shattered glass. They hadn't just attacked the car, they'd attacked his dream with precision. I can't start over, he admitted, his voice breaking. Not with the deadline. Maybe this is where it ends, Mr. Grayson said gently. No shame in recognizing when you're beaten. But you're not beaten, Zoe objected, already examining the damaged wiring. This is fixable. Different, but fixable. Mr. Wilson nodded in agreement. Every restoration hits roadblocks, son. The measure of success isn't avoiding setbacks, it's how you respond to them. As they catalogued the damage, Marcus's younger sister arrived unexpectedly. She'd been looking for him at home and Mr. Wilson's wife had directed her to the junkyard. Taking in the scene, she approached the car and examined the crude graffiti. You know what, Marcus? They wouldn't have bothered if they weren't scared of what you're creating. Her simple insight cut through his despair. She was right, Blake's vandalism wasn't casual destruction. It was fear disguised as contempt. Marcus ran his hand along the defaced hood. We'll need to strip it all down again, he said, a new determination solidifying within him. Start with the fuel system, then rewire from scratch. Zoe smiled, already pulling on her work gloves. I was hoping you'd say that. Monday morning found Marcus back at Westfield, standing in his usual spot against the wall in Ms. Peterson's classroom. The weekend's devastation had left physical and emotional marks, his hands raw from stripping damaged components, dark circles under his eyes from sleepless nights. Mr. Johnson, you look particularly disheveled today, Ms. Peterson observed with thinly veiled satisfaction. Perhaps your extracurricular activities are interfering with proper rest. Marcus met her gaze steadily. No, ma'am. Just focused on the future. Something in his calm response seemed to unsettle her. She turned away quickly, launching into a lecture about the Civil War. After class, Marcus lingered, waiting for the classroom to empty before approaching her desk. Ms. Peterson, I'd like to request the homework assignments for next week in advance, he said. I may need to adjust my study schedule. She looked up, suspicious. Why would you need that? I'm working on a project that might require additional evening hours, Marcus explained carefully. I want to ensure my academic responsibilities don't suffer. This mysterious project, she said coldly. The one that has you distracted in my class and associating with junkyard workers instead of focusing on your scholarship obligations. Marcus paused, weighing his words. It's a mechanical restoration project. Something I believe I have aptitude for. Aptitude, she repeated, her tone dismissive. Mr. Johnson, students like you receive scholarships to rise above your circumstances, not to waste opportunities dabbling in manual labor. The old Marcus would have apologized, retreated, acquiesced. But standing before her now, he felt oddly detached from her power to diminish him. I believe education comes in many forms, he said simply, then added with quiet confidence, may I have those assignments, please? His calm assertion seemed to confuse her. She handed over the worksheet packet without further comment. After school, Marcus returned to the junkyard to find an unexpected visitor conversing with Mr. Grayson. The man, in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and an expensive watch, turned as Marcus approached. You must be Marcus, he said, extending his hand. Jim Williams. Walter Wilson speaks very highly of you. Mr. Williams owns Prestige Motors, Mr. Grayson explained. Luxury car dealership downtown. Walter showed me pictures of your project, Mr. Williams said. Both before the vandalism and after. I must say, I'm impressed with what you've accomplished, especially given your age and resources. Marcus shifted uncomfortably under the praise. We've had some setbacks. So I've heard. That's actually why I'm here. Mr. Williams gestured toward his car, where several boxes were visible in the back seat. I have some connections at Rolls-Royce. When Walter told me what happened, I made a few calls. The boxes contained original replacement parts, wiring harnesses, fuel system components, and even a new hood panel, all with the Rolls-Royce insignia. These would have cost thousands, Marcus said, stunned. "They're warranty returns and demonstration units," Mr. Williams explained. "Not sellable as new, but perfectly functional." Royce was intrigued by your project. "They may even want to feature it in their apprenticeship program materials if you're successful." As they unloaded the parts, Ms. Hammond from the science department arrived, looking somewhat out of place in the junkyard setting. "I hope you don't mind the intrusion," she said to Marcus. "I overheard some students discussing what happened to your car. I wanted to see if there was any way I could help." "You knew about this?" Marcus asked, surprised. "I've noticed the engine diagrams in your notebook," she admitted. "And the automotive physics equations you work on when you think I'm not looking. You have a natural talent, Marcus." Ms. Hammond, it turned out, had connections at the community college's automotive program. "They have equipment you could use, diagnostic computers, specialized tools. I've arranged for after-hours access if you're interested." As the afternoon progressed, more help materialized. 3 mechanics from a local auto shop arrived, sent by Mr. Wilson's extensive network of industry contacts. They offered expertise in bodywork and paint correction, skills Marcus was still developing. "We heard about what those rich kids did," one said bluntly. "Not right to crush somebody's dream like that." By evening, what had seemed like an insurmountable setback began to transform into a new opportunity. The Rolls-Royce, stripped once more to its essentials, would now be restored with proper parts, professional equipment, and expanded expertise. "I don't understand," Marcus said to Mr. Wilson as they surveyed the day's progress. "Why are all these people helping me?" The elderly mechanic smiled. "Because talent deserves nurturing, son. And because sometimes, the world needs reminding that the value of a person isn't determined by their wallet or address." Zoe, who had been documenting the restoration process with photographs, showed Marcus her latest captures, images of the car surrounded by helpers from all walks of life. "This isn't just about a car anymore," she observed. "It's about proving what's possible when someone refuses to stay in the box others have built for them." As Marcus left that evening, new determination filled his steps. Blake Thompson and his friends had meant to destroy his dream. Instead, they had inadvertently expanded it beyond what he could have imagined alone. For the first time, Marcus began to see that his restoration project wasn't just about fixing a broken car. It was about challenging a broken system that judged potential by privilege rather than passion. Word of the Rolls-Royce restoration spread throughout Westfield like wildfire. What began as malicious gossip about Junkyard Johnson transformed into something unexpected as details emerged about the scope of the project and the professionals now involved. "Is it true you're rebuilding an actual Rolls-Royce?" a freshman girl asked Marcus in the hallway, her expression curious rather than mocking. Before Marcus could answer, Blake appeared with his usual entourage. "He's playing with garbage," Blake sneered, though his confidence seemed diminished. "My father says it'll never pass inspection, even if he somehow gets it running." "That's not what the Rolls-Royce technical advisor said when he visited last week," Marcus replied calmly, enjoying the flash of uncertainty that crossed Blake's face. It wasn't just students taking notice. A local reporter named Sophia Chen had caught wind of the story and arrived at Mr. Grayson's yard requesting an interview. "This is the kind of story people need right now," she explained, surveying the progress on the Phantom. A teenager from modest means, overcoming vandalism and skepticism to restore something beautiful. Marcus hesitated. "I'm not looking for publicity." "Maybe you should be," Mr. Williams suggested. He had become a regular presence, offering technical advice and connections to specialty parts suppliers. "This kind of achievement deserves recognition." The resulting newspaper article appeared on Sunday, featuring photos of Marcus working alongside Mr. Wilson, Zoe, and a growing team of volunteers. The headline read, "From Wreckage to Renaissance, Local Scholar Resurrects Luxury Icon." Monday brought unexpected consequences. Principal Blackwell summoned Marcus to his office, where 3 school board members waited with grave expressions. "Mr. Johnson," Principal Blackwell began, his tone carefully neutral. "These board members have questions about your extracurricular activities." Marcus recognized the tactic, the same intimidation approach used after Ms. Peterson had struck him. But something had changed in Marcus. He stood taller now, his back pain lessened by purpose and pride. "I'd be happy to answer any questions about my restoration project," he replied confidently. "This newspaper article suggests you're spending substantial time on a car restoration," said Mrs. Harrington, the board chairperson. "Time that perhaps should be devoted to maintaining your scholarship requirements." "My grades meet all scholarship criteria," Marcus countered politely. "I've maintained my GPA while developing practical engineering skills that complement my academic education." Another board member leaned forward. "The article mentions an apprenticeship possibility with Rolls-Royce motor cars. Is that accurate?" "Their technical advisors have expressed interest," Marcus acknowledged. "Nothing formal yet." The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly. What had begun as a disciplinary meeting was evolving into something different, an assessment of potential prestige for the school. "Westfield has a proud tradition of supporting exceptional student achievement," Mrs. Harrington said, her tone warming. "Perhaps this project could be incorporated into our STEM curriculum as an independent study. With proper faculty supervision, of course." Principal Blackwell's expression tightened. "Mrs. Harrington, I'm concerned about setting precedents. If every scholarship student pursued unauthorized projects, how many scholarship students are being approached by Rolls-Royce?" "Edward," she interrupted. "This seems rather exceptional." As Marcus left the office, he encountered Ms. Peterson in the hallway. She had clearly been waiting for the outcome of the meeting. "Quite the celebrity now, aren't we, Mr. Johnson?" she said coolly. "Don't let it distract you from your actual obligations." "My obligation is to make the most of my education," Marcus replied. "In all its forms." Her eyes narrowed. "Just remember your place here." The confrontation was interrupted by Ms. Hammond, who approached with a stack of technical manuals. "Marcus, I found these in the engineering department archives. They might help with the final phase of your restoration." Ms. Peterson retreated without another word, but her hostile glare followed Marcus throughout the day. After school, Blake and 4 friends cornered Marcus near his locker. Their usual swagger seemed forced, almost desperate. "The school board might be impressed with your junkyard trophy," Blake said, "but colleges won't care. You think Yale or Princeton accepts students because they can change oil?" One of Blake's friends shifted uncomfortably. "My dad actually said the restoration was pretty impressive." Blake shot him a betrayed look. "Whatever. It's still just a broken car that'll never run right." "You're welcome to come see for yourself when it does," Marcus offered, surprising himself with the invitation. "Like that'll ever happen," Blake scoffed, but the edge of uncertainty in his voice was unmistakable. As winter melted into spring, the Rolls-Royce transformation accelerated. The vandalism that had once seemed devastating had become a catalyst, bringing resources and expertise Marcus could never have accessed alone. The rebuilt engine, now properly tuned with factory diagnostic equipment from Mr. Williams' dealership, awaited its moment of truth. The elegant body, restored and repainted by professionals who volunteered their time, gleamed under the workshop lights. The complex electrical system, Zoe's special domain, had been meticulously rewired with original components. "We're almost there," Marcus told the reporter who had returned for a follow-up story. "Just final calibrations and testing." "And then?" she prompted. Marcus smiled, thinking of Blake's dismissal and Ms. Peterson's disdain. "Then everyone gets to see what's possible when you refuse to accept the limitations others place on you." The article's publication coincided with an announcement that sent ripples through the automotive community. The prestigious Barrett Concours d'Elegance would be hosting a special Young Restorers showcase. Mr. Williams had submitted Marcus's project for consideration. "They want the Rolls-Royce as a featured restoration," he announced one evening, brandishing the official invitation. "This is huge, Marcus. Industry leaders, collectors, engineering schools, they'll all be there." For the first time, Marcus allowed himself to fully embrace the possibility that had begun as a desperate dream beside a broken car, a future defined not by where he came from, but by what he could create. The morning of the Barrett Concours d'Elegance arrived with perfect spring weather, clear skies and gentle breezes ideal for showcasing automotive excellence. Behind a privacy screen at the event grounds, Marcus and his team made final preparations on the Rolls-Royce Phantom. "How are you feeling?" Zoe asked, adjusting her dress. Like the others, she had dressed formally for the occasion. Terrified, Marcus admitted, straightening his borrowed tie. Mr. Wilson had insisted on proper attire, lending Marcus a suit that had been tailored for the event. "You should be proud," Mr. Williams said, inspecting the car's immaculate finish. "What you've accomplished here would challenge seasoned professionals, let alone a teenager with limited resources." The restoration had exceeded everyone's expectations. From the catastrophic damage of the initial accident and subsequent vandalism, the Phantom had been reborn. Its gleaming black exterior showed no hint of its troubled history. The handcrafted interior, painstakingly restored with materials sourced through Mr. Williams' connections, reflected the luxury that defined the Rolls-Royce brand. Most impressive was the engineering beneath the surface. The massive V12 engine had been rebuilt to factory specifications, with Marcus implementing several efficiency improvements that had impressed even the Rolls-Royce technical advisor who had visited during the final phase. "They're ready for us," Mr. Grayson announced, returning from the organizer's tent. "Judges will see the car in 30 minutes." As they prepared to move the Phantom to its display position, Marcus spotted familiar faces arriving among the spectators. Ms. Hammond waved enthusiastically, accompanied by several science department colleagues. Behind them, more surprisingly, came Principal Blackwell with the school board members who had questioned Marcus months earlier. "Didn't expect them," Marcus murmured to Zoe. "Success attracts attention," she replied with a knowing smile. "Even from those who doubted you." The most shocking arrival came minutes later, Ms. Peterson, escorted by Blake Thompson and 3 of his friends. Their presence felt vaguely threatening, as if they had come to witness a failure rather than an achievement. Marcus took a deep breath. "Let's do this." At precisely noon, the privacy screens were removed. The restored Rolls-Royce Phantom was revealed to the gathered crowd, gleaming under the spring sunshine like a dark jewel. An audible gasp rose from the spectators, followed by spontaneous applause. 6 judges, industry experts, collectors, and automotive engineers, approached with clipboards and scrutinizing eyes. They circled the vehicle, examining panel gaps, paint quality, and interior detailing. "May we see the engine?" requested one judge, a silver-haired woman with a Rolls-Royce pin on her lapel. Marcus nodded, smoothly opening the hood to reveal the immaculate engine bay. Every component gleamed with factory-perfect precision. The judges murmured appreciatively, making notes and exchanging impressed glances. "I understand this was substantially damaged before restoration," another judge asked. "Yes, sir," Marcus replied. "The car suffered major accident damage, followed by vandalism during the restoration process." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Remarkable. The quality of work here surpasses many professional restorations I've judged." From the spectator area, Marcus could see Ms. Peterson's pinched expression. Beside her, Blake wore a conflicted look, part resentment, part grudging admiration. "We'd like to hear it run," the lead judge requested. This was the moment of truth. Despite all the testing, despite the hours of calibration and fine-tuning, public performance was always uncertain. Marcus slid into the driver's seat, feeling the supple leather conform to his body. He inserted the key and pressed the ignition button. The V12 engine came to life with a refined purr that gradually settled into the nearly silent idle characteristic of Rolls-Royce. Perfect. Exactly as it should sound. The crowd erupted in applause again. Even Blake's friends were clapping, though Blake himself stood with crossed arms. After the judges completed their evaluation, visitors were permitted closer access. Ms. Hammond approached first, beaming with pride. "Marcus, this is extraordinary," she exclaimed. "You've applied every principle of physics and engineering we've discussed in class, and then some." Principal Blackwell followed, extending his hand stiffly. "Westfield is proud to have such an accomplished student," he said, loud enough for nearby reporters to hear. Ms. Peterson lingered at the edge of the crowd, her expression unreadable. When Marcus caught her eye, she quickly looked away. The most significant moment came when a woman in a crisp suit approached, offering a business card with the Rolls-Royce Motors emblem. "I'm Alexandra Reynolds, Director of Apprenticeship Programs," she introduced herself. "We've been following your progress through Jim Williams. What you've accomplished is precisely the kind of talent we're looking to develop." As she outlined the possibilities, a fully funded apprenticeship, professional certification, potential employment, Marcus caught sight of his mother and sister arriving. Their faces reflected disbelief and overwhelming pride as they took in the scene. Marcus at the center of attention, surrounded by automotive royalty, standing beside a masterpiece he had brought back from destruction. In that moment, as past and future converged around the gleaming black phantom, Marcus finally understood the full impact of his journey. He had transformed not just a car, but himself and the narrative others had tried to impose upon him. He was no longer the scholarship boy who stood against the wall in pain and humiliation. He was Marcus Johnson, restoration artist and engineer, who had turned wreckage into wonder through vision, determination, and unyielding belief in his own capabilities. The Barrett Concours d'Elegance concluded with an award ceremony held under an elegant white tent. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over round tables where attendees in formal attire sipped champagne and awaited the judges' decisions. Marcus sat between his mother and Mr. Wilson, still processing the day's events. Across the table, Zoe gave him an encouraging smile while Mr. Grayson pretended not to be nervous. Regardless of any awards, his mother whispered, squeezing his hand, "I have never been more proud." The master of ceremonies approached the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for." Multiple categories were announced: pre-war classic, European sports, American muscle, before reaching the special Young Restorers showcase. This year's competition was exceptional, the MC announced. But one restoration stood apart for its technical excellence, historical accuracy, and the remarkable story behind it. Marcus held his breath. The Barrett Award for Outstanding Young Restorer goes to Marcus Johnson, for the 2012 Rolls-Royce Phantom Resurrection. The tent erupted in applause. Marcus sat frozen until Zoe nudged him toward the stage. Accepting the crystal trophy with trembling hands, Marcus faced the audience. In the crowd, he spotted Ms. Peterson and Principal Blackwell sitting with the school board members. Blake Thompson and his friends occupied a table near the back, their expressions ranging from surprise to reluctant respect. "Thank you," Marcus began, his voice steadying. "This journey started with a broken car and a broken spirit. Both seemed beyond repair." He acknowledged his team, Mr. Wilson's mentorship, Mr. Grayson's belief, Zoe's partnership, Mr. Williams' connections, and the community that rallied around him after the vandalism. "What looked like destruction became the catalyst for something greater," he continued. "I learned that sometimes, we need to be broken down completely before we can be rebuilt stronger." As Marcus concluded his speech, Alexandra Reynolds from Rolls-Royce approached the stage. Rolls-Royce Motor Cars is pleased to offer Marcus Johnson a full apprenticeship at our technical center, with a scholarship to complete his engineering degree. The announcement triggered another round of applause. Marcus caught sight of Ms. Peterson's tight smile and Principal Blackwell's calculating expression, already formulating how Westfield could claim credit for Marcus's success. After the ceremony, Blake Thompson approached awkwardly. "That's actually a pretty impressive car," he admitted. "My dad says the work is professional quality." "Thank you," Marcus replied simply. "Look, about the vandalism," Blake began. "It's in the past," Marcus interrupted. "Sometimes our worst moments lead to our best opportunities." As the evening concluded, Marcus stood beside the Phantom, running his hand along its flawless finish. Mr. Wilson joined him. "What happens now, son?" the elderly mechanic asked. Marcus smiled. "Now I stop standing against walls and start building my future." 2 weeks later, Westfield High held a special assembly. The Rolls-Royce Phantom gleamed in the morning sun outside the main entrance, drawing admiring crowds of students. Inside the auditorium, the school board chairperson announced new anti-bullying policies and a suspension of corporal punishment practices. Without naming names, she referenced recent events that had prompted a re-evaluation of disciplinary procedures. Ms. Peterson sat rigidly in the front row, her future at Westfield uncertain following multiple student complaints that had surfaced after Marcus's story became public. As Marcus prepared to address the student body, he caught sight of his mother and sister in the audience, alongside Mr. Grayson, Mr. Wilson, and Zoe. "Many of you knew me as the scholarship kid who stood at the back of the classroom," he began. "The one with back pain who couldn't sit down." A hush fell over the auditorium. "What you didn't know was that standing became my strength. It gave me a different perspective. When you're always on the outside looking in, you develop the ability to see possibilities others miss." Marcus shared the lesson he'd learned through his restoration journey, that value isn't determined by wealth, social status, or the judgment of others, but by passion, determination, and belief in one's own gifts. "The car outside isn't just a luxury vehicle," he concluded. "It's proof that brokenness isn't the end of the story. For a car, for a person, for a system, restoration is always possible if we have the courage to begin." As Marcus stepped away from the podium to thunderous applause, he no longer felt the ache in his back that had plagued him for so long. The pain that had once defined him had been transformed, like the Rolls-Royce, into a symbol of strength, resilience, and the power of refusing to be limited by the expectations of others. Standing tall, Marcus Johnson walked forward into a future of his own design. Dear friend, this story reminds us that true potential often lies hidden beneath society's quick judgments and labels. Every child deserves the chance to develop their unique talents without facing ridicule, discrimination, or physical punishment. When we recognize the gifts in others instead of defining them by their circumstances, we create a world where innovation and excellence can flourish regardless of background. If this message touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that challenge perceptions and inspire positive change. Together, we can build communities that lift people up rather than tear them down. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful messages of resilience, hope, and human potential.